said earlier that you were going to different cities and you were trying to get best practices. I got out of that you were making sure that you were going in a listening mode to people. So my question is, did you hear anything upstairs that was unique, or was it more of an affirmation of things that you're hearing in other places?
No, it's interesting because I think each city is different, and what I took from Memphis was that the desire for interaction between law enforcement and the communities that they serve is there, and that's felt at the leadership by the police department, felt by the political leaders as well. But the concern that they have, and that I have, frankly, is that they might not have the resources to do it in a way that they would like. It was interesting when we were talking about having to take people away from community policing activities because of resource problems, so that they could answer calls that were coming in. You have to respond to those calls, and that meant in a resource-poor environment that people could not be out in the community building relationships. And so that's something that that I take back. But it was interesting, I think, also just to hear about the real desire for interaction, for communication.
You mentioned community policing, and our police director mentioned earlier in the day that he'd like to see some national standards for community policing. Is that something you can support, and what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm not sure. I think, at national standards, we have a COPS office that really highlights best practices. I think that's one of the responsibilities that we have in the federal government. A lot of the stuff is really kind of is basic, getting out of squad cars, walking the beat, going to community meetings, making people understand, let people see who you are in times where you're not stressed, where you're not dealing with a particular incident or a call. So yeah, we have ideas, we have best practices that we can certainly share with local police departments, and that's what our COPS office does.
Switching gears just a little bit, there's a lot of concern by different people that the grand jury process itself is inherently unfair. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the grand jury process is one that I think generally works quite well. One has to understand that it has a very limited role. It only has to make a determination about whether the probable cause exists to have a trial for proceedings to go further. And I think given that limited role, the grand jury process generally works pretty well. But like anything that is comprised of human beings, mistakes get made. And I'm not referring to any of the cases that that are in the news now, because any of those matters under investigation here at the Justice Department. But there are going to be mistakes that get made. So I think we have to try to always looking at ways in which we can improve the system, but also as we judge the system, look at it in its totality. And I think if we do it that way, I think the grand jury system works pretty well.
Historical significance of you and your president. And I was just wondering if you could speak to, now that's a couple of hours ago, what you think it all means.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I thought it was really interesting to be there just in the spot where Dr. King spent his last moments, and then to have those protesters there raising their voices, and it just seemed incumbent upon me to respond to them. I couldn't stand where Dr. King lay and ignore them, and so I tried to, as best I could, respond to the concerns that they raised. But it was interesting, the things they were raising about over incarceration, the other issues are things that we are working on in the Justice Department. Doesn't mean I have solutions for them now, but they are certainly things that we are focused on. And but it was a really that was an interesting moment. That is one, as I look back on my time as Attorney General, that is going to be a moment that I think I'm going to hold on to, because it was, like you said, that was pretty compelling.
You talked about
Last question, we have to wrap. That's fine.
Sure.
Go ahead.
You talked about earlier the need to have constructive responses to some of the things like that happen. Do you see that has been the posture for the administration? And what do you say to those who say that you're not done enough?
Yeah, well, there are always going to be people who say, you haven't done enough, and ultimately, the judge of that will be history, and you need more time, and we're still in the process of doing things. This is year 6 of an 8-year administration, and we've done a lot in the Justice Department in the last 18 months, let's say, about this whole problem of over-incarceration, charging policies. This president's got another 2 years to do a whole variety of things. I'm proud of what the Justice Department has done over the last 6 years, proud of what this administration has done over the last 6 years, but I look forward to what this Justice Department, this administration will do in the remaining 2. And at that point, I think you can start the questions about did the administration do enough? Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, you picked up on something that was exactly right. That was really